part 2 of the discussion following in Power Hour this November 23rd, 2010. Be More News, the news before the news. I am Catalina Byrd, and I'm joined again by Charles Robinson and Norman Handy. And this time we're following the discussion about what should be the top legislative priority of Baltimore City going into this new session. Mr. Robinson, because we let Norman talk a lot the last segment, we're going to ask you first because you had some valid points on the air.
Well, first and foremost, I think the city's focus should be on creating new entrepreneurs and the ability to take some of the populations that happen to land here in the city, i.e., ex-felons and those who have been incarcerated, and giving them new opportunities. I talked about this whole concept of rehabbing the housing stock within Baltimore City. I think you don't need a degree to do that. You don't need you need your hands. You need the ability, somebody to show you how to hang some drywall. You need somebody to show you how to lay some if you will, some insulation in somebody's house. And guess what? At the end of the day, save some money. I think that's a pretty good deal.
Now, as our resident devil's advocate, you also had an issue with entrepreneurship as being a top issue or a way to remedy what is going on in our city. So what would your top legislative issue be?
I guess my issue with entrepreneurship is the notion that that's not a catch-all for the majority of people. In other words, most people are not going to be entrepreneurs. Most people are going to have jobs and work someplace. Even if they're employed by an entrepreneur or employed by this federal government or employed by the state government or employed by local government, that's not going to solve all the problems. My point, legislatively speaking, what you really should focus on is education. My first year teaching was under No Child Left Behind. And during that period, you had Baltimore City closing school after school after school. The mayor's office hired a public relations company to talk to all the citizens and explain to them why they were closing some of the schools. And they had predetermined this. So the notion that you have real estate developers who want to develop real estate, but if you want to develop real estate, you're not going to develop it near a school. So what is the demand of these real estate developers, and how does that play out in the quality and the quantity of education that we have in Baltimore City? We need better schools. We need more schools. My first 3 years of teaching, taught at Canton Middle School. Each year during the testing, every year like clockwork, the heat went out. My children took tests with their coats on. Now, if you know anything about standardized testing, the conditions must be uniform. So a person taking a test in a jacket in a 47-degree room, it's not going to fare as well.
But tell me this: you have issues with entrepreneurship, but what Mr. Robinson was saying initially on the air was that entrepreneurship should be worked into the curriculum. True, while everybody is not going to be an entrepreneur, some are going to be employed by them. Why is it that we always have to pick and choose about which one is our issue? We ask which should be a top, but how come we can't fold entrepreneurship into education? And do you honestly believe that teaching someone to be self-sufficient is not going to be beneficial to them or their community?
Well, I can agree with him on the notion that we should include that in the curriculum, no doubt. There are a lot of things that we should include in the curriculum of a city that's has a lot of black people, like Black history. That might be something you might want to include. But the notion that entrepreneurialism is going to save the masses of black people in the United States, I just think that's
we're not trying to save the masses in the United States. We're
No.
talking about Baltimore City, where a large portion of them have been systematically.
Let me jump in here for a minute. I don't know if you're aware of the statistics that most of the people who are coming out of the prison system in Baltimore, while they lived in various parts of the state, end up in Baltimore City. So you got a problem with, you got this whole population that's disenfranchised, not just from voting, but from taking any job opportunity. So I got to create a mechanism for them to either to get a job or to give them the skills that allow them to at least put bread and milk on the table. Now, if you believe that the state is going to take ex-felons, I can tell you should be sadly mistaken, because they always have a little check about, have you ever been incarcerated or have you been convicted? And guess what? I'm going to guarantee you, ain't nobody hiring them. So I got to find a way to get these people employed in ways other than through the traditional system. And that traditional system is that I take what I can do and turn it into something. You know, one of the things that's very interesting is that I talked just about the building sector. Well, guess what? I don't know if you know, they got a bunch of high-rises downtown, and they got to have somebody cleaning those places. And guess what? Last time I checked, I can pick up a mop and a bucket with some cleaning solution, and daggone, I think I can make some money at this. If I can get 10 clients to pay me $100 a week, and they can get rid of whoever, John, Jane, Dick, and whoever is in there, and Jose, and I can come in there with my crew that looks like me, that lives in my neighborhood, and I can provide that service. Daggone it, give me that job. Give me that entrepreneur.
I'll pose the question that Catalina posed. If we're going to pick and choose, we don't have to prioritize and make one issue the issue. So if you believe in entrepreneurship that much, then maybe we should change the system that has that box that you check and you're a felon. For example,
Trust me, it ain't going away. It ain't
Well,
going away.
realistically speaking,
Let me finish.
It ain't
'Cause
going away.
When you were on the show, you talked about the fact that there were 200 farmers that are gone today. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if those people who you just talked about coming out of the correctional system wanted to become farmers, could they?
Absolutely.
Absolutely not, because they couldn't get federal money with a felon.
Well,
I bet
bottom
they
line
need that.
is you don't need to get, trust me, farmers prior to
You
getting
don't
the federal
need
money,
federal
to be
an
a farmer.
entrepreneur, first and foremost.
You would need
You
federal
would
money
need
to be a farmer.
You
No,
don't
you
need
don't.
federal money to be an entrepreneur. And
Didn't
furthermore,
you just talk about those
there's
people
something,
losing all they had?
there's some kind of attitude, and you seem to be our specimen sample for it here that exists or amongst the city, that we don't have to deal with the situation as it is. We just deal with it in ideological terms. So they don't need to survive, and they don't need to eat, and we don't need to be concerned with how it is that they continue to eat. We're just going to tell them everything that's wrong with the way that they eat. As always, we could continue this discussion on and time again. That's what we do here at Be More News, the news before the news.